Okay, hello everyone who is coming in for this month's virtual tour of intentional communities. So glad to have all of you. Welcome, welcome. My name is Cynthia, and I am one of the co-directors at FIC, the Foundation for Intentional Community. I'm calling in from Vermont, where I live myself at an eco-village called Headwaters Community in central Vermont. And today we're going to hear about two wonderful intentional communities, GreenRise Community and Rainwater Collective. Okay, hi Terry and Charles and Rachel. Great to have you with us. We're going to start off with Terry and Charles from GreenRise Community, which is an urban community located in Chicago. And I'm thrilled to have you both. There you go. I see you got the presentation being queued up. Go ahead and unmute and take it away.
All right, thank you so much. And appreciate everyone on this call. And really great to meet you here virtually. And thank you, Cynthia. So yeah, my name is Charles, and I am one of your tour guides for GreenRise Community here in Chicago. And Terry is my partner, Terry Bergdahl. And in the next 10 minutes, we want to share a little bit with you about our mission and vision, our historical background, and some context, which was kind of why and where we are here. And then we want to share after that the who we are, makeup of our community. Then we want to talk about what we do here and how we do it. And then finally, some brief reflections on what it's like for us living here. And so with that little outline to start with, Terry's going to start us off with some of our mission and historical background.
Yes, there. Good. I'm learning how to do PowerPoint, so that's fine. I thank you very much, Charles. I'm always ready and excited and enjoy talking about GreenRise in particular and intentional communities in general, so this is a great opportunity. Here at GreenRise, our mission is to be a welcoming and fulfilling community built upon diversity, sustainability, and social justice. We are on the co-housing end of an intentional community spectrum. And by that, I mean we are about community life that is a balance between individual interests and community endeavors. Co-housing means for us living light on the earth, maximizing shared common space, and following values of voluntary simplicity. And so we do that in a number of different kind of ways. As you can see, we in an urban environment, many of us ride bicycles. We don't even have cars and the like, and we have an opportunity to do that here. Now, historically, we live in a building owned by the Institute of Cultural Affairs. This has been the home base. This 8-story building is owned by the ICA. And it's known as the GreenRise building. This historically has been home to an intentional community for 50 years. During the first 20 of those years, the residential community were all staff members of the nonprofit organization, the ICA, and they were very intentional. They shared income, they had a common purse, they ate all meals together, and with everyone under assignment by the community for the use of their time. And I highlight that just because for me that those are characteristics of a missional community who has a very focused purpose and the like. And I like to characterize that's one end of a spectrum of intentional community, whereas co-housing and what we currently are is on the other end of a spectrum about intentional community. And of course, then we have tons of examples of everything in between. Well, that very missional community, for a number of reasons, came to an end in the early 1990s. But this building continued to host and evolve intentional community. And so there's really been an unbroken continuity from the very early 1970s until today with intentional community. And today, this GreenRise building is the largest nonprofit service center in the Midwest. And our community, the GreenRise Intentional Community, occupies the 7th floor with our wonderful kitchen on the 6th floor. Now, another intentional community is on the 5th floor, 2 floors below us, but it's totally independent of ours. The building also has the largest number of solar panels of any building in the entire city of Chicago, except for the Shedd Aquarium, who I like to point out has a slightly bigger source of funds than ICA does. The GreenRise community, intentional community, however, is very much aligned with the mission of ICA to be a learning laboratory of social justice and sustainability. And the building community, the building and our intentional community both attract a high degree of notoriety and attention within the city of Chicago. Here's an example of one of our members giving a tour to the current mayor of the city of Chicago. And it's in the Lumumba Room. Well, the Lumumba Room is an indoor arboretum where community members can go for informal conversation and or just a time to relax. Now, while the alley that you see here, we call it Elegant Alley, right outside of the Lumumba Room, serves in a sense as our backyard, we have a fabulous front yard. And that's the city, that's the lakefront, which is only a 10-minute walk away from our front door. And of course, that provides all kinds of opportunities for our community that we fully enjoy. Now, that's a word about why we have a community and where we have a community. And Charles is going to pick up a little bit and talk a little bit about who we are.
Okay. So our current community consists of 28 adult members and 3 children. And this breaks down here as you see on the slide. And so we kind of hit every decade. As you can see, we're represented multi-generationally. And secondly, we are racially diverse here at GreenRise. And there's an ebb and flow to membership as there are in all communities, intentional communities. We are represented with some of us here in the photo. And yeah, we have people from many different backgrounds and walks of life, places of origin. And then thirdly, current members of our community have lived here during different lengths of time, which is also a cool feature. Some are new members like myself, and some have lived in the community for decades. And the woman shown here in the photo had lived at GreenRise for 30 years, and this is her 89th birthday photo, and she has since passed on. But it's really cool to just see the different levels of experience and lengths of time. And then a last part about the who of GreenRise is that we are pet friendly, definitely. We have several dogs, cats. We have a turtle who lives right next to our kitchen. And we do have a hamster. And so, yeah, it's really a cool blend of us together. The kitchen is one of our big gathering places. It's central to pretty much all communities and also for us as well. And we do have some innovative arrangements here at GreenRise where, yeah, just to touch on one more thing about the kitchen is that we have a wonderful chef who's part of the community here, coming here several days a week, and about half of our members subscribe to a meal plan. So she will shop, cook, make all kinds of things, and leave all that good stuff in the refrigerator. And about half of our members pay her a monthly fee for that, and it's all taken care of. And then about half take care of their food needs on their own. And then wanted to say that we also do a lot of different kinds of social events. And so here's a picture showing a dancing class that we were able to do. Basically, members who might have a passion or an interest in something will then share that with other members. And so that there's a lot of examples of this, which is really cool. Little more difficult during the pandemic time, but we have figured out ways to get together and do these fun different things. Recently, we watched a movie together, the movie Soul, which is a Pixar movie. We've been planning to do soap making, and we have a butterfly garden that, you know, people are able to plug into different things here. And then we, yeah, with the gardening, that's been a lot of fun. We just started to initiate our urban composting project. And so a lot of our members were able to decide if they were able to pitch in. And our goal is to just basically be green as we can, limiting our footprint on the earth. And it's one of the great things about community living. So we've started now. Composting is our next piece that we're initiating. And now with that, Terry will be able to tell you how we do things together.
Well, I mentioned that part of our mission is in a co-housing kind of set of principles is to maintain a balance between individual interests, what people are doing, how they're engaged, what are things that are important to them, but also community endeavors. And many of those social actions, the composting, the dance classes, the soap making, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those are all things that happen because members with other members decide to make them happen. And they get involved in it. But in that balance between individual interests and community endeavors, we do have some very basic obligations that is really a part of the vetting process when new members apply and seek to become members here. And these include participation in 2 monthly community events. One of those is a community meeting that happens on the 12th day of every month. Therefore, sometimes it's on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever day of the week. It moves as the 12th moves, and then that'll ensures a better chance of getting as many of our members as possible to have a free calendar to participate. The other one is that we do one large potluck dinner a month. We do it on the first Saturday evening of every month, and people bring food that they prepare to that, and then we have a community event, and we celebrate accomplishments within individuals' lives, different marks that they have, celebrations, and so on, and the like. The other thing is that we require, we recommend, the agreement is that every member of our community will participate also in one of our committees. And you can, and I'll walk through those in a minute. And then we have this kitchen, and every member has an assigned day in which they then devote an hour at their discretion for kitchen care, kitchen duty, as I like to talk about it. And it's every week. And we use that kitchen duty team. Everybody, I'm on Monday. Everybody has the kitchen duty day, and they're responsible for either hosting community business meetings on a month, or potluck dinner throughout the course of the year. So once every 7 weeks, my kitchen duty team takes responsibility for the community dinner and the community meeting. Now our committees, we have 5. And one is the new members committee. This is where applications and inquiries that we receive, where people say, oh, this sounds interesting. We'd like to be maybe a part of the GreenRise Intentional Community. Well, the new members committee then has a very spelled out process of making contact with those people, talking with them, and in a sense, making sure that there's a potential good fit between the new applicant and our community, and what we value and how we function, and what a clear understanding of what it means to be a part of an intentional community. We have a values and practice committee, and that committee, for example, is where conflict resolution resides. And so we have people working on how do we objectify and deal with different issues whenever they come up. And so that's the committee that takes responsibility for that. The third one is sustainability. They're the ones who have been doing a lot of this planning on composting that Charles just talked about. They do the gardening, they do the recycling, other kinds of things on sustainability, and they're constantly pushing their thinking on what they might do. Fourth one is common space care, that just makes sure that we're dealing with our common space. And then our fifth committee is fundamentals, and that's where things get planned, like, oh, it'd be great if we did community movies. How are we going to do that? And people contribute ideas, but the committee is giving some basic shape and form to that. So that's how we live together, how we function, and how we do different kind of things. Now, in fast conclusion, Cynthia, we'd just like to personally share just a little bit about our individual take on community and the like. And as I'm going to start with Charles, and Charles is going to hand it over to me, and we'll just spend a couple of minutes giving you some thoughts.
Sure. Thanks, Terry. I wanted to just share a couple things about my experience. First of all, of how long I've been at GreenRise. I have been here for 7 months. And I have also to share about why I decided to arrive here at GreenRise. And basically, I got to GreenRise through my interest in nonviolence, which I've studied and worked with for a number of years. And intentional communities are a topic that comes up in this field of nonviolence. Some of my colleagues in nonviolence live in intentional communities in various states. So that definitely sparked my interest to, that could be a cool way to live. And also going with this idea that, Chicago is a very diverse city, but diversity, I think, means not just being near others, but being with them. And so this community has been a great way to be with all these awesome people. And then, about why I am glad that I'm here is, along similar lines. It's great to meet people little by little and find out what's important to them, and then cooperate on a team. I'm on the Friday kitchen team. Also, I've learned things like one of our housemates showed me a style of meditation that I had not practiced before, and I've benefited a lot from that. I've learned how to make waffles, where every Sunday we have a waffle brunch. Waffle have been now a good routine for me. I've learned how to make them. And also, just the chance to live a little more simply and, in a more conscientious way. And then lastly, I wanted to share about challenges in living in intentional community, which so far for me, honestly, I love it. I feel like I was always meant to live in this type of situation, and challenges do arise. I think it was a little trickier getting to know all these 30 people in the community with the pandemic, because we are not perhaps out of our rooms as much. And so you need some time to get to know each other, and the weekly brunches are a great way to do that. And some of the other structured things we do, like the monthly meetings, the monthly dinners. So those definitely make that easier. And I think it just takes time to kind of learn who each other are. And another thing, a lot of us have different schedules. So there might be a member who you're not running into very often, because my schedule is these hours and her schedule is these other hours. So that can sometimes mean you don't see a person at the meeting, and you'd like to get to know them. So yeah, that's what I would share, and pass it on back to Terry.
All right, thanks, Charles. If Charles is relatively new to intentional community, my wife and I have a long history of living in intentional communities. We spent several years in a very intense and highly disciplined missional community. It's the same one that I mentioned that began in the ICA building 50 years ago. And while my wife and I very much appreciated and are grateful for that experience, the principles of co-housing, when I first encountered them, really struck a chord with me. And it was in co-housing principles that really attracted me to GreenRise. Now, we've lived here in GreenRise, even though I've been associated with intentional communities around the world in different places I've lived and this and that. We actually moved into the GreenRise Intentional Community 12 years ago. And so we've been here that time. The biggest challenge I experienced in our community, in many ways, I like to say, are just a reflection of the big challenges that we face in society as a whole. And there's something about living together and sharing a toilet and sharing a kitchen and the showers that intensify all those kind of things that you experience within society broadly. And most immediately, we certainly have gone through a lot of challenges in our own dialogue as a community and so on something very practical like COVID responses. and vaccination. And that becomes a really such a touchy subject to talk about and to do in a respectful kind of way, and yet at the same time ensure that the well-being in the entire community is taken care of. And so that's something we continue to wrestle with. Cynthia, I'm guessing that our 10 minutes is up, and we probably even stretched a little beyond 10 minutes. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Charles and Terry, GreenRise Community. Wonderful. It was so cool to hear about how thoughtful your community structures are. It just feels like a really well-developed place with these different ways that people can engage, well-defined agreements. So just really grateful for you of sharing with all of us. Yeah. Great. And we do have some questions coming in. Folks, remember, if you have questions, I'd love to have you raise your hand and ask them out loud. But I'll go first to these questions in the Q&A box. So, are the units at GreenRise rentals? And how long is the vetting process?
They are rentals. And we obviously have a partnership arrangement with the ICA, who owns the building. And yet the ICA hands over all the responsibility of community life to us. So we're self-determining on the quality of life and how our community works and functions, including who we would invite to become a member of our community. And so our arrangement is such that we get the first contact when somebody says they're interested. We do a vetting process. I would say that it probably takes at least a month to go through the vetting process, because we do conversations and we organize a interview. We invite everybody in the community to attend the interviews, although it's usually our members committee that does it. We want people to have a tour of our space before we get too far advanced in the conversation about living there, because you can't make a decision about joining a community in the abstract. You have to really see it. So usually it takes about a month. And then if we think there's a good fit, we hand over the recommendation to ICA, who actually manages the rental lease for a room. And they do a background check, they do a criminal background check, credit check, all those kind of things. One of our learnings was these are important, and if you don't do them, you can pay a price for it. And but all that takes about a month. Charles, you have anything to add? You went through it very recently on the other end.
Yeah, I would just add, I found it was nice to hear some of the things like the credit check. I was reassured as I entered the community that, sometimes you do a credit check and you have to have this really, high credit score, and not all of us have that. And so that was one thing where there are things like that we do, but we are a very kind of open community as far as you don't have to have all kinds of great financial build-up, as I certainly didn't. Another thing I thought was really helpful was that during the process of entering the community, a couple people, including Terry, that onboarded me helped share about the challenges that the community had, maybe some issues with the building itself. And I knew what I was getting into, I felt. And I think if you're tempted to paint too rosy a picture for people who are likely to join, they might join and it's not what I expected and I now need to leave. So it helps to, I think we try to be upfront and honest about various things so that a person can really tell what they're getting into and don't feel once they enter that, oh, this is not what I imagined in my mind, and so now I need to leave.
Yeah, that's good to have realistic expectations.
Mhm.
Right. And a related question, how much are the rentals?
Charles, you want to answer?
Yeah, are we at liberty to say? Yeah, the rentals for the smaller rooms are around $400 per month, and then to the larger rooms, to my understanding, go to around 600. Now in Chicago, that is much more reasonable than you would typically find. I was in a studio apartment before, and it was about twice that amount that what I pay now. And so one of the things, it's much more affordable in general. And so we try to make sure that while that's a great aspect, we wouldn't want that to be the only reason that you would like to move into this community.
Yeah, that's a really affordable rate. And that's one of the benefits sometimes of community living is it can be more affordable, especially in our cities that are increasingly becoming unlivable. So good. Okay, we have a few more questions. Do you give virtual tours, or would someone need to come to have an in-person tour?
We have done virtual tours, and with our faulty internet access, it sometimes is a challenge walking around with your telephone showing people rooms. We've accented it sometimes with photographs that we send with people of rooms that we showed them during the virtual tour. It's far inferior to an actual physical tour, but we also realize we've had applicants and live in other cities, and one of our current members did his tour while he lived in Peru. And so yes, the short answer is yes, we do virtual tours. It's not our preferred way of doing a tour.
Gotcha. And you had said that you have a shared kitchen. Do you also have shared bathroom facilities, or how does that work?
Charles?
Yes, we have on the 6th and 7th floor, on the 2 floors that we use of this building, there are restrooms on both levels. And then on floor 8, I'm sorry, I forget about floor 8. Sometimes we do have members living on floor 8. So we have restrooms. We have one restroom on the 7th floor that is for individual use. And so that is helpful for, the community needed to address this idea of gendered restrooms or non-gendered, non-binary restrooms. And so we have one single occupant restroom. And so we're still, as a community, coming to, what does that look like so everyone has an inclusive way, to use the facilities. And then showers as well are currently single occupant use. That was an adjustment made during the pandemic where people felt that that was safer, but it has in general worked very well. And so it's just there's 2 separate shower rooms, and when one person's in there, they close the door and no one else goes in. And so there's 2 of those, and it has worked out. Everyone's feedback has been pretty good that I've heard, that we haven't been fighting over getting into the shower rooms.
Good. Nice. Good. And do you have guest accommodation? Like, could someone come and stay for a few days? Yeah, you do. Nice.
We're dealing with that question right now. We have had people from out of town who come with enough forethought and plan that we have a guest space where people can stay. Generally, we want to be for a period of time that's sufficient for people to see our community and experience our community, but we don't want to host vacations or a trip to Chicago. And therefore we want to focus. So generally speaking, we welcome people who are interested in learning about our community to come and spend maybe a couple of nights, but we really want to limit it, and partly because of our limited guest space.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. And last question for you. We see in the photos that looks like a really big building that you're in. What's happening? Is any other cool things happening in the rest of the building?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And Charles, if you got anything to add, but this is one of the speeches I normally make and I have to cut back on it. That building is the largest nonprofit service center in the Midwest. Our intentional community is on the 6th floor, as I already mentioned. There's another intentional community that's independent of us that's on the 5th floor. And then we have numerous agencies doing social services for mental health issues, substance abuse issues. The 2nd floor, we did have 50 beds for interim housing for homeless and low-income women. We have a dental and medical clinic for that kind of population within our building. Immigrant services. So our building is entirely full of that kind of stuff, as well as the innovations of intentional community. And then, as I pointed out, we have more solar panels than any other building in the city of Chicago, except for the Shed Aquarium. But this is part of why the mayor of Chicago wanted to come look at our building. And of course, intentional community is a part of it.
Oh, amazing. That's great. I wish there was more buildings like yours. Yeah, there must be like so much just good energy with so much goodwill and service. And then you have the solar panels on top to top it off. It's just amazing.
And we have a few challenges.
I bet you do. Yeah. It's a lot of parties to please within one space. Yeah.
And real quick, did we address, I see that Michael asked a question about our cars. I forget if we addressed that. It is a question, is there an agreement that no one has cars? And we don't have such an agreement. It just happens to be, I guess, that a lot of us don't have cars and a lot of us use bikes. And there's actually a ton of public transportation near this building. So it's really convenient with buses, trains, and other transportation around here in this part of Chicago, uptown neighborhood, but it's not a rule or anything.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, and there is one more question in the Q&A box. So if you want to type your answer to that in that box, but I think we'll wrap up our Q&A on GreenRise community because I want to give enough time for our next speaker. So thank you so much, Terry and Charles. And Charles, I know you have to head out shortly. Really appreciating you being here, and thank you both for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you as well, and thank you everyone.
Okay, all right, take care. And now we can go over to Rachel with Rainwater Collective in North Carolina. So we just heard about GreenRise, which is a quite well-established intentional community in an urban environment. Now we're going to hear about a forming community in a more rural environment. And Rachel, if you're with us, do you want to say a few words to start, or would you like me to jump right into sharing the video?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay. I think we could jump right into the video. I want to let folks know that I'm joining by phone, so I can't see the chat. So just make sure that, any questions get to Cynthia so that she can direct them to me. We created this video in advance. We're pretty off-grid, focused on appropriate technology out here in the woods in rural North Carolina. So our internet connection at Rainwater is very limited. So I'm happy to be here with you guys by phone.
Okay, great. I will cue up the video. Hi, welcome to Rainwater Collective. This is the heart of our community.
We're here stewarding about 17 acres of early succession Piedmont forest, aiming to live with the forest and be part of the forest's path through succession back to becoming a more biodiverse ecosystem again. So this land, this is Occoneechee Saponi land. It has been used primarily for tobacco farming for many years and then logged over and over again. And so this forest is at an early stage of succession, recovering itself with our help. So the Rainwater Collective is an eco-hamlet. This is a small 10 to 15 person community, eventually 10 to 15 people community, with the mission of being part of a network of people who are creating and reconnecting with culture and life forms that can help us regeneratively reducing our dependence on and our participation in the extractive economy, getting as few of our needs met as possible by our industrial corporations and getting our needs together with each other. So we are focused very tightly on that vision. Other founding values of the community include the idea of building hope through lived possibility. So we're here living off grid, living a permaculture-based life with the goal that that can help others in our culture see that this way of life is possible and be inspired to make those changes themselves. So rather than focusing primarily on coercive ways of creating social change, we're trying to create social change by creating. We're also very focused on design, so designing for resilience. Resilience has a lot of meaning to us. It means creating systems and creating cultural topsoil that can withstand the huge changes that are coming our way as a species as a result of climate change, and also mitigating those impacts as best we can by the way we live. Also, nonviolence and dismantling systems of oppression. Those are key founding values of ours. We believe that white supremacy and colonialism and just sort of generally paradigms of dominance and coercion are inextricable from the ecocidal train wreck that is our current culture. So dismantling those things is not like a separate agenda for us. It's totally embedded with everything else that we're doing as best we can. Also, a big focus on gratitude and the gift economy, building ways of connecting and exchanging resources that aren't tied to the money economy, and nurturing each other, taking care of each other, nurturing our relationships with each other as one of our most valuable resources, knowing that we can't do this alone. So we can walk up through Rainwater Central, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of the community and also offer some examples of what we're doing out here to live those values. And my wonderful camera person, Julia, is going to try to walk backwards for me so that we can do this. So this community has really only been in existence for about 6 months to a year. We're very new. We currently have two adult members and 2 kid members. I've lived here on this land for about 5 years. I'm the founding member, and just took several years to sort of get things together, infrastructure-wise, socially, financially, and like stuff-wise, to be able to actually open up the community. So we started this project with raw land. We started this project with land with no industrial infrastructure on it. We still have no well, we're totally off grid. And so a lot of the structures that you'll see here, we have been just building slowly over the last few years, building by hand. So we can stop and just look at the garden. Obviously, growing food is a crucial part of resilience. So we use a permaculture approach to gardening here, and focusing on growing not just delicious annual vegetables, but eventually really focusing on growing perennials and tree crops and meeting our calorie needs. We also have animals as part of our land project. This is a future duck pond. We really focus on having nurturing relationships with the animals that are in our care. Let's see. So as I mentioned, part of our strategy, part of the idea of designing for resilience is rather than starting with a more like typical middle-class American lifestyle and then gradually moving towards living off-grid, part of what we're doing here at the Rainwater Collective is starting starting by only building the infrastructure that we want to have that actually is resilient and sustainable. So we didn't start with a well, we didn't start with grid electricity. So we are currently meeting all of our needs with rainwater. We're catching rainwater on the barn roof, we're collecting it in cisterns. We have a DC solar system. This is like much gratitude to the folks at Living Energy Farm for doing a lot of the research and background work to kind of prepare that set of knowing for us to be able to have solar that is much more sustainable than an AC-based system. And just a few things in the kitchen here. You can imagine that we have a lot of meetings. Like any community, we really put a lot of emphasis on conflict resolution, on making decisions collaboratively. We use a consensus mode of governance. We try to coordinate a lot of our activities. It's a partially income sharing community. So we do a lot of kind of interdependence and coordination, and then preserving individual people's autonomy where we can, recognizing that where we're coming from with our cultural background, we need that. Okay, kitchen. We have a peeler system for the sink, so we don't use running water. We use a scoop system to minimize our use of water. We have a gray water system. Jacob is here demonstrating the use of the rocket stove. So this is a way of cooking that we do when we have, you know, abundant time resources, because it takes a little bit longer. Using one of the things that our forest currently has an excess of, which is small sticks. With plenty of small sticks, it's not a problem for us. Okay, let's see, we want to maybe take a look at the star hut. So we, you know, recognizing that about a third or more of climate emissions currently come from construction, especially using concrete. We have some agreements and some mission-based things here about natural building, using on-site materials as much as possible for a building. So here's an example of a building under construction. This is going to be my place to live eventually when I move out of the earth. So this building will be wattle and daub and slip straw. And it's built almost all using materials from the land. So all the roundwood in this building came from rainwater. And then we have a relationship with a local sawyer to get our rough sawn dimensional lumber. All right, and then finally, I have been instructed in no uncertain terms that I need to include the rainwater is also a place where we're raising children together in community. To introduce you to Ocean and Luna, our current kid members, and they wanted a chance to show off their parkour setup. You guys want to do a little parkour?
Yeah. Hello, my name's Luna, and I'm 7 years old, and I like to have fun. That's why I made this course.
Do it, Luna. Go for it. Yes.
My name's Ocean, and I'm 10 years old, and I like to do parkour.
So these are examples of both designing for resilience and also nurturing relationships. We see raising children as really essential work as part of our community. And one of the ways that we structurally value that is that the work of childcare and teaching children is part of our community labor system. So how much time do we have left? 8:42. Oh, great. Okay, perfect timing. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about the membership process. So we are just in the baby stages of forming this community. As I mentioned, we currently have 2 members that are adults and 2 kids. We have various work traders and woofers that come through. So if you're interested in visiting or work trading, don't hesitate to reach out. In terms of growing the community, growing the membership of the community, we're taking some advice from a sister community of ours, Cambia in Louisa, Virginia, and focusing on growing relatively slowly so that we can build a lot of depth of relationship over time. So with this level of interdependence and living this challenging, frankly, of a lifestyle, we really need those relationships to be strong. So we are looking for new members. We are welcoming people to explore the membership process. The membership process here at Rainwater is long. It's about 1.5 years long to really allow time to build that. And then, you know, throughout that process, there's like a gradually increasing level of commitment to the community and commitment of the community to the new member. We're a partial income sharing community, so there's a pretty heavy contribution of labor and then a sliding scale contribution of income. So we're a radically affordable community. A deep part of the intention and part of our value of dismantling classism and dismantling the money economy and the institution of property ownership is that we are structuring the community such that folks can join regardless of their financial circumstances. But we do have some level of income sharing as part of the community. Anything you can think of that I should add?
That was pretty thorough.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. Thanks everybody for watching.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that tour. It really was a virtual tour. You took us around and showed us everything. And I'm excited to see what it's like. Like, we'll have to have you back in a few years. Like you said, you're still in the early stages, but it seems like you're setting some really great foundations. And I'm so impressed with your ecological commitment as well. Like, I understand now why you're called Rainwater Collective, because you collect your rainwater and you're not using a well, which is incredible. Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. I think others have questions as well. So are you ready to answer questions?
Okay, great. Okay, yes, I'm ready for questions. Lay it on me.
Okay, cool. Oh, well, one question, I was curious about this too. It seemed like there was some loud sound in the video. Was that traffic or an airplane?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, the really unfortunately timed airplane. Just as we were like, oh, look at these beautiful woods that we're taking care of, the airplane.
Yeah, no worries. I was wondering if you lived near like a highway. It seems though like you're in a pretty rural location.
It's very rural. Yeah, we do have some sounds. We have like you a little bit can hear the highway. We have neighbors that live near us that play music. Sometimes we can hear that. So it's not, we have had some folks come here hoping to not ever have to experience industrial society, and that's not a thing that we can offer. Yeah,
totally.
But it's sort of part of the work that we're doing, I think, to try to be able to reckon with that stuff and reintegrate it.
And how close are you to the nearest city? Like, especially someone was asking for medical and dental.
Yeah, we're 20 minutes away from Hillsborough, North Carolina, which is like a charming, kind of hip little small southern town. And then we're 35 minutes away from Durham, North Carolina, which is an awesome city. I mean, Durham's just fantastic. It's not huge, but it's got a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, Durham's cool. Yeah, great. Yeah, there's a few other intentional communities in Durham too. All right.
Yeah, a lot of cool housing in Durham.
Yeah. I don't know if this is too personal of a question. Someone had asked if the adults are a couple and if they're the parents of the kids.
That's a totally acceptable question. So I'm one of the members. Leslie is the other member. She is the mom of Ocean and Luna. We're not a couple. Leslie joined our community after woofing with us last year. And when she joined, the kids joined too. And so we're, the sort of navigating of like, what is a community relationship and what is a family relationship has been really interesting for us. I'm certainly in a parenting role with the kids. They call me Aunt 0.5, like more than an aunt and less than a mom.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting. The family boundary and the community boundary and how that all works.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah, the kids like to say all the time that at Rainwater, everybody's family, which is true and also not true.
Yeah, but that's sweet. They seem like they're really, really having a good time living there.
They love it, yeah.
Oh, sweet. So during the 1-year trial process, where would one live?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we are, we're doing this interesting thing of kind of like building things from scratch as we go. So Leslie's living in a tent currently, living in this little camper that we have. So what we're anticipating is that folks in this early stage of the community, folks are going to be attracted who are able to and interested in living pretty scrappy life at first. So we either build their own structure using their own labor and money resources, and then you can take that structure away with you when you leave the community, or we will build a structure using community money and community resources that then becomes part of the community. So we're looking mostly, as far as dwellings, we're looking at building mostly very small homes, partly for, you know, code and county reasons and partly for ecological reasons. So little cob, straw bale, timber framed 12 by 12s for most folks. So yeah, folks who come join the community are either going to be helping to build, or they're going to be doing other work while people in the community build them a little structure, and probably roughing it in the meantime.
Gotcha. And related to that, are you getting in trouble with building inspectors or anything like that? And someone's also curious about the wattle and daub.
Not yet. Our strategy, man, anybody who's ever tried to live off grid knows that it's a complicated dance with codes and planning departments and things like that. So we have, oh man, like a 30-page document that outlines strategy. Super happy to consult with anybody offline about that if anybody's currently like trying to do that dance. Certainly that's part of why we build 12 by 12 structures, is that in our county those aren't required to be permitted. And what was the question about wattle and daub? Like, what is wattle and daub, or why wattle and daub?
Yeah, maybe why wattle and daub, and let me see how many their issues. Yeah, maybe why wattle and daub, and also why not using a well was another question.
Ooh, that's a really good question. So briefly, wattle and daub is like cob, but it uses less material than cob because first you're timber framing your house, or at least post and beam framing, and then putting in sort of like a almost like a basket woven out of sticks to support some of the cob. So it offers some of the same advantages of cob. It's like all, easy to access, local, free materials, lots of thermal mass, but a lot less labor. And labor is typically our limiting factor for like anything that we do here. When you stop using fossil fuels, you need a lot more labor.
Gotcha.
Why no well? It started out financial, and we didn't want county, health department inspectors walking all over the land to site the well. And we started with very little money for this project, so we thought, oh well, we could build a well, or we could spend the $5,000 that a well costs to build a barn and then catch water. But it's actually become a really important part of the vision. And it's one of those design decisions that when you make these kinds of design decisions early on, it has a permanent effect on your lifestyle and on the structures that you're building after that. So by not having a well, we're building in this reliance on rainwater, and we're building in a really deep connection with what's going on with the weather. So, we have more water available when it's raining and less water available when it's not raining. We also are not able to strip, we're not able to use water past the carrying capacity of the land. We're not able to participate in draining the aquifer, which is happening all over the country. And also we have a resilient source of water as aquifers run out, as wells go dry around the country, as things accelerate with climate change. North Carolina, we're lucky enough to be one of the places where it seems most climatologists predict anyway that we will continue to have a steady rainfall. So we're really depending on that, and building in that kind of dependence on the earth rather than just having water appear to be an infinite resource like it does when it comes out of the tap is a really important part of what we're doing.
Yeah, great system of resiliency there. Yeah, I liked what you said about you had a quote, building cultural topsoil in the beginning of the video for greater resiliency as a society. So I love that. And another question for you: who owns the land on which you're living and developing your community?
Ooh, another really good question. I can tell whoever asked that has been involved in communities, because
that was actually Terry,
really
the panelist.
Yep. Yes. So I'm currently holding title to the land. I bought this land with my then spouse 5 years ago with the intention of starting a community. We were not able to navigate starting that community together, and eventually divorced. And so then the dream kind of fell to me. So Leslie and I are currently working with a lawyer who I think often does webinars for FIC, Cliff,
Clifford.
to set up a nonprofit. Yeah. Yeah, so the current plan is for the land to be owned by a 501c3, and for some of the, like all the infrastructure and the sort of like educational mission of Rainwater to be run through the 501c3, and then have a separate LLC or some other structure that sort of manages our day-to-day income sharing, you know, who buys the peanut butter type of money flow.
Gotcha. Great. Yes, good question, good answer. Let me see if there's anything else I missed. You had mentioned that you wanted to have, I think I remember, like under 20 residents. Is that a limitation based on your zoning or the land? How is that determined?
You know, it's a little bit arbitrary. We don't know what the carrying capacity of this land is. And it's, you know, we don't have this idea of like self-sufficiency. I really challenge that idea anyway of self-sufficiency, as if you could meet all your needs from your own, quote unquote, own 17 acres, right? We're going to be meeting our needs in collaboration with other people around the region. But we don't want to have more people living on this land than is healthy for the forest to be living here. And so that's sort of the main constraint. I think also our models of the way that we're organizing ourselves and the kind of culture that we're building for what we're doing here makes most sense to stay at a somewhat smaller scale. And I really, really am hoping that other projects like this can grow and develop in this area so that we have some of that larger scale of organization happening, you know, within the county, within the neighborhood.
Gotcha. Great. Okay, Keshva has put this question in twice, so I guess it's important. More detail about the water collection. Have you thought of making a pond?
We are planning to dig a pond like any weekend now. You know, things just keep getting pushed back, but pond is on the short list for the ducks, and also to, you know, get some piles of dirt for the wattle and daub. But the main plan that we have for how to store water is actually we're going to build an earth bag cistern for long-term water storage. And boy, if anybody's interested in chatting with me offline and offering some design consultation around that, I'm a new natural builder, so would love to pick someone's brain who's done an earth bag project before. But yeah, so we want to have about a 12,000 gallon cistern behind the barn that we can store lots of water. Because one of the things that we're anticipating with climate change is that we're going to have longer droughts and bigger rain events. So taking that into consideration, we need more storage capacity.
Very cool. Okay, and I think this is the last question. How will future community members be screened? Like, what will be the vetting process?
Another really good question. So we have this membership process currently underway with that essentially looks like, you know, you visit, you meet us, you spend some time here, and then like a series of steps towards full membership. So, you know, like provisional membership, associate membership, full membership. And each of those chunks is 6 months, and each of those chunks has like gradually increasing level of responsibility towards the community and also amount of power and decision making for the community. So like provisional members can't block, and then associate members can block, but they're not on the board of the nonprofit, so like effectively owning the land. And then full members, obviously, we're all sharing management of the nonprofit that owns the land.
Okay, great.
So that process allows for a lot of time. We're hoping, I mean, I've never done this before, so this is just me, you know, this is just based on wisdom collected in other communities, but we're hoping that that allows plenty of time to resolve conflicts with people, to see how well people are able to resolve conflicts and give and receive feedback and all those different skills, and to try to work out problems that aren't working and see if they can be solved.
Great. Oh, and then I have a question for you, Rachel. You had mentioned that you had visited or drawn on advice from Living Energy Farm and Cambia, which are 2 intentional communities in Virginia. Is that, have you yourself visited communities and, gained inspiration and support for yourself as a founder?
Yes, like really trying not to reinvent the wheel. Unfortunately, I don't have any experience of living in a fully formed intentional community. I wish that my life allowed me to pause this project for 6 months and go do that. I think it'd be really helpful. But I've tried to establish relationships with other communities, get mentoring and advice and support, to read books, to participate in like these wonderful FIC events. I have so much gratitude to the FIC for the education work that you guys are doing.
Great.
Yeah, just to try to build on some of what people have learned rather than starting over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really important. I think a lot of people who say, "Oh, I want to start a community," they don't realize yet that there's so many models that already exist, and a lot of wisdom can be gleaned through that. Beautiful. Well, with that said, I'd love to open this up to more of just a popcorn style conversation with both you and Terry, because you both are treasure troves of wisdom through having gone through the process of starting and helping to sustain a community, as well as, I know, Terry, you had mentioned having visited many communities, and you're also involved, remind me, a community in Mexico as well. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
It's called the Lidiboo Eco Village, and it was created 30 years ago by former staff members of the ICA and that very disciplined, intentional community that I mentioned. And as that transition occurred, there was a group of 20 people that said, "Oh, let's start something together." And we had people in Mexico who found this beautiful place on oceanfront property that we could afford, and there we are. And someday we may do a virtual tour with Lidiboo also with you. Now, your question was what besides Lidiboo?
Well, my question to both of you is, what advice do you have for our audience here? Maybe some of whom are thinking to start their own community or even just join community, but maybe early in the exploration process. Do you have any advice for them in getting involved with this way of living? Because you wish you had known when you were getting involved.
Rachel, you want to answer first, or? Well, my advice would be visit and spend time in intentional communities. And then you're going to see how well you personally align and how maybe some of your abstract ideas about intentional communities get tempered by reality. It just gives you a better idea about how you might contribute and the like. As you might have gathered, a lot of people apply to our community because they think it's a cheap place to live. And we're not interested in people coming because they think it's a cheap place to live. We want people to understand, no, it's about a community and building community, and community only happens when you're invested in it. And from our viewpoint, that only happens if people have some kind of firsthand experience.
Yeah, great. So essential. Rachel, how about you? Any advice you could offer?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble navigating when I'm muted and unmuted. Yeah, so this is just something that Cynthia mentioned, but I want to extra emphasize is just all the time I hear folks mention, yeah, I think I'll start a community and do this and do that. And it's just really important to recognize that it's a huge amount of work and that there's a huge amount of resources already available. So, read books, watch these educational webinars and things, and visit communities and talk to community founders. And overall, like really sink your teeth into the process issues, because thinking that, oh man, I meet a lot of young adults that are like, yeah, like me and some friends just, I bought a piece of land and my friends are going to live on it with me and it's going to be an intentional community. And my heart just breaks to think about all the trouble and heartache that's going to come from not having clear agreements and not having an understanding of who's going to own the land and not working things out in advance and deciding how you're going to resolve conflict and things like that.
Yes, so true. Yeah, there's this statistic that 90% of intentional communities fail within the first year. Similar failure rate to starting a business. Not only are you're kind of starting a business, but you're also creating a family and building a culture and living with all these people. So it's a lot. Good. Well, good pieces of advice. And yeah, I don't know if there's any final thoughts you want to share as we wrap up here. Anything else you want to? Oh, one thing neither of you spoke of so much was conflict resolution, and we just mentioned that. When conflict comes up, what do we do? How do your communities address conflict, or do you have any specific practices or procedures in place for that?
So one of the decisions that we made here at Rainwater Collective is to require folks to participate in conflict resolution as a condition of membership. I know not all communities do that, but for this model where we're living so closely together and we're doing income sharing and have so much, it's a small group that has to interdepend really tightly. I think that's going to be necessary for us. Oh, am I still?
Yep.
Did that come through? Was I still muted? Okay, good.
No, it all came through. Conflict resolution is really, really important, and it's really important for you to create a process for doing it, and one that your community people help create rather than imposed or the like. Cynthia, my mind is so terrible. Who was the woman that put on that excellent workshop for FIC on developing conflict resolution? I'm just trying to look at it because it was just so phenomenal and so terrific.
Was it Yana?
Yeah,
Yana?
I think she's from the community right next to Dancing Rabbit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was just absolutely fun.
Maybe it was Allison Ewald. Yeah.
I think it was Allison. It was Allison.
Yeah.
It definitely, now you say her name, I remember the correspondence I had with her after that workshop. But it was terrific for her to share her experience and what was there, and how wherever you are in your community to take where you are and to move it forward. And it's another example of you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are people who have a lot of value and information to share that is helpful to you. And we did the same thing in GreenRise with decision making. And we really did not have an objective decision-making process, and we worked through that, and now we do have one. And so it's just so helpful to have it. We're still in process of objectifying conflict resolution. We recognize it, we've put in place ways to do it, and as you might imagine, with the kind of diverse community that we have, you're just always surprised where it pops up.
Yeah, totally. Great. Okay. Well, I think that's just about all the time that we have. And I really want to appreciate you, Terry, and Rachel for being with us. I'm also going to put the link for our upcoming gala event into the chat box. Would love to see everyone participate in that. It's a free event. I didn't mention that earlier. We're going to have live music and games and just sort of a way to sort of round out the year as a community for our It Takes a Village gala event. Okay, so Terry and Rachel, thank you both. Any closing thoughts as you head on out?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this and to provide a little structure to telling our story. And I'm just always deeply grateful for the kind of support that FIC provides to our movement that we are about all participating in and building. So thank you.
Yeah, woo, our movement, love it.
Yeah, I want to also share my gratitude to FIC and for you, Cynthia, for hosting. And I just want to say, don't give up. If you're interested in community, if you're working to build community or to join community, don't give up. This work is worth doing.
So true, so worth doing. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you both. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope to see you again on our next virtual tour event. We're taking a break for December for the holidays, but we'll be back doing this once a month starting in January. All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Take care.